B'Shem Hashem Na'aseh V'Natzliach. Thank you everybody for joining us tonight. We're back in business. God willing, we'll do modern halacha. Today I wanted to talk about flattery. As we do live in a society of a lot of fake people, and this week's Parsha, Massaie, at the end of the chapter 35, the Torah says, "V'lo tachnifu et haaretz asher atem ba, ki adam hu yachnif et haaretz v'la'aretz lo yechapel adam asher yishupach ba, ki im bedam shochvo." So right at the end of the fourth book of the Torah, and the end of chapter 35, the Torah forbids us from taking money and allowing a murderer, a bona fide murderer, into the cities of refuge. So basically, this is how it works. If somebody murders another Jew on purpose, he has to go get the death penalty. If somebody murders another Jew, and you can't call it murder, kills another Jew by accident, then the bloodthirsty relatives want to take revenge. He can go to the 36 cities of the Levites, the Levies, and then they'll protect him. The Torah is demanding and commanding us, the Levites cannot take money and let in a real bona fide murderer, because this makes God terribly, terribly disgusted. And that's why there was a fascinating case that happens on a constant basis, as if there's no money, there's no honey of Torah. The Torah is the most sweetest, impressive and fundamental thing to the world. It's the oxygen of the world. And many Jewish institutions would honor a billionaire that has married a Shikzta. So they will go ahead and say he's a sterling example of Jewish leadership, his sensitivity, his caring, his giving. And many religious and observant Jews get disgusted and fume. How could you honor a person that has married a non-Jew and he's part of a spiritual holocaust which is causing more Jews to have died because of assimilation and intermarriage than the Holocaust themselves? So are these observant organizations that honor anybody that gives them money, even if the person is terribly, terribly misguided in his religious observance? He married a non-Jew, a Shikzta, or he's doesn't keep anything in the Torah. Is that appropriate or not? Is that president, chairman of the board, master of ceremonies, the whole institution, doing the right or wrong thing in the eyes of the Almighty Lord? And just to make sure that we should realize on an ethical level how terrible the sin of chanufah, flattery, is, well, let's take a look in the Gemara in Sota at the end of the chapter 7, Daf Membet, page 42, I apologize, in the Bavli. It says 4 people cannot see the light of God. Ena mekablim pnei Shechina, which Rashi explains, there are many people that will go to heaven because they've done more good deeds than bad deeds. But there are 4 species of people that even though they have their scales are tilted way in favor of their mitzvah and good deeds, they're not going to see the light of God in heaven. God is going to put his face, so to speak, to the back of them. They cannot. And who are they? The Gemara in the Bavli Sota Membet says, Arba kitot ena mekablim pnei Shechina, people that are always making fun of everything, ridiculing everything. People that are flatterers, the second one, they're not going to see the face of Shekhinah. People that are pathological liars, and people that are always destroying peace in the world through their Lashon Hara. These 4 people do not see the face of Shekhinah, which is a terrible sin. It's a terrible punishment because they are in heaven, but they're not getting the full benefit because God puts his back towards them because he despises these first. And they learn it from, how do we know that the people that are chanufa, are flatterers, don't see the face of God, so to speak, because it says, Dichtib ki lo lefanav chanef, yavo. It says in Iyov, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the book of Job, chapter 13, that in front of him there are no flatterers, which means God is the epitome of truthfulness. Somebody that is always flattering people that are evil and saying they're wonderful, this is wrong. And actually we're mourning the destruction of the temple. Believe it or not, I bet you 99% of people don't know this, but one of the reasons our temple was destroyed in Jerusalem is the Gemara right on the other page. Look at the Bavli, Mem Aleph 41b in Sotah. It says that unfortunately there was, according to Jewish law, a king, even if his mother is Jewish, if his father is not Jewish, he's uneligible to be the king. Because it says, Mikerev achicha tiyeh melech. From amongst your brothers, you can establish a king. So according to Judaism, both the father and the mother have to be Jewish, and from the tribe of Judah for you to be a king. And there was a king in the end of the second temple. His name was Agrifas. His mother, of course, was Jewish, but he was not. And guess what happens? The Gemara says that he was reading the Torah and he started crying. Because what happened was he realized that he wanted to resign as the king. Because he said, it's very evident to me, even though I'm not a Torah scholar, that my brothers are not Jewish, which means my father's not Jewish. He started crying. He was such a... And the rabbis, unfortunately, at that time, were totally misguided. And they told him what? No, you're our brother. Do not feel bad. It's okay. You don't have to resign as the king. And the Gemara there says something that at that time, God wanted to destroy all the Jewish nation. Terrible word, kelaya. You know, these four things of being somebody that makes fun of everything, lying, pathologically lying about everything, gossiping and destroying people's life through character assassination and flattery, God despises these things so much that when the leaders of the Jewish nation do it, God wanted to, God forbid, eliminate the nation of Israel. And because the rabbis, instead of telling the king Agrifas that yes, you are right, you read the Torah right, you should step down as the king because you are uneligible, your dad wasn't Jewish, they said no, you're kosher, you're good, go ahead, ba 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 bi bi bam. And this was one of the reasons God said, this temple, such a community, I don't want anymore. Just to bring out a final ethical thing about how terrible flattery is, one of the most classical books of Jewish ethics that the Grozal says was one of the most important books of Jewish ethics was the Menorat HaMaor, such a sweet book. And he there also says over there in Ner Bet, Klal Gimel, Chelek Aleph, Perek Aleph, and Perek Bet, he says that about flattery, he writes, Elu hamenachim l'shaim, these people that flatter evil people or respect them in order to gain favor in their eyes or gain a favor, oy lenafsham, woe is to their soul. Their cause the world, God forbid, to get destroyed, and God hates them. Like it says in the Talmud Bavli 113 Psachim. So you're playing with fire if you just want to, and especially publicly, in front of 1,000 people at a dinner, you say this guy that's married to a Shikzta, he's holy, he's wonderful, he's the best. was that appropriate or not? Because it comes up all the time. A lot of the wealthiest people are the people that are not religious at all, and their wives are not Jewish, unfortunately. First of all, we have to define precisely and exactly what chanufa means. Chanufa means that you justify the actions of an evil person that rebels against God and does not keep the Torah, and you honor a Rasha because you want to find favor in his eyes and you want to get money from him, or he's very powerful. You want him to give you protection, like a mafia type of person. And the Grazal says in Yeshaya that more times than not, the classical case of chanufa happens when the person he's such a person that he's nice to people. He is a charitable person, this figure that you are honoring. He's charitable, he's a gentleman, he's nice, but he's a womanizer, and he doesn't care anything about his responsibility to God or Shabbat or kosher. So can we honor such a person in a banquet or not? So I just wanted to say that today's shir is based on Rabbi Yaakov Mantro's wonderful book. I just fell in love with the Sefer, Halachic World, chapter, volume 1. He brings from the Rabbeinu Yonah that Rabbeinu Yonah says, yes, you're allowed to praise the good actions of a Rasha, somebody that doesn't keep Shabbat or married a non-Jewish woman, which is causing a spiritual holocaust. But there's a big caveat to this. It's only permitted if you mention that he's also his bad deeds. So, right? Judaism, bad deeds never cancel out your good deeds. For your good deeds, you're going to go to heaven, and for your bad deeds, you're going to first have to go to hell. A sin doesn't cancel out a mitzvah. So therefore, according to that logic, Rabbeinu Yonah says, fine. You can say that this person gave us $1 million for us to build a yeshiva or build an orphanage. But it would be very awkward if you want to follow Rabbeinu Yonah's halachic ruling, and he talks about this extensively in Sha'arei Teshubah. He says there's 9 different types of flattery. It would be embarrassing him in public because you would have to say, we do not condone his actions of desecrating Shabbat or having his business open on Shabbat or him marrying a Shikzta. So, and the Sefer, L'Re'echa Kamocha, volume 1, page 102, would say, it seems according to the Rabbeinu Yonah, the way he understands it, it doesn't matter if the person is Tenuk Shenishba, which means, yes, on one hand, the person may not be at fault for being non-religious and marrying non-Jewish and not keeping Shabbat and not keeping any of his obligations, like the first 5 of the 10 Commandments, which are responsibilities between him and God, because from a young age he grew up unreligious. He doesn't know better. It's like a young boy that was stolen at birth by the non-Jews, kidnapped, and he grew up among non-Jews. So he doesn't know even that he's Jewish. They snatched him as a baby. It seems from the Rabbeinu Yonah, the way this posek author understands it, that Rabbeinu Yonah says there's no exceptions to his rule. Yes, you want to honor somebody that doesn't care anything about Judaism, his religious obligations to God, but on the other hand, you could praise his good deeds that he gave $1 million, but you would have to have the whole enchilada, the whole package there, and mention all the mistakes that you do not want people to find out. By the way, parenthetically, the Musar books, the Jewish ethics and philosophy books explain, why is this so despicable in front of God? And I forgot to say that this is just not some ethical fluff over here. One of the most important books, halachic books, written by the Rishonim, Rabbi Lazar Mimintz, the Yereyim, says this is the 55th commandment of the Torah. Just like you have to keep kosher and keep kippur and keep Passover and Shabbat, the 55th mitzvah of the Torah is that you should not flatter, respect and honor and praise people that are evil, that are Rasha. And somebody that does not keep any of the commandments of the Torah, unfortunately, would go under that category. And not only that, it's the Sifri, the Rabbi Lazar Mintz learns it from a Sifri on this a passage that we quoted in the end of chapter 35 in the fourth book of the Torah, Bamidbar. So, the reason why Chanufa is so bad is very simply is, first of all, we should really reprimand somebody that married a Shikzta, somebody that married out of the religion. So not only are you not doing that, the reason why it's such a despicable behavior and it destroys the world and God hates it and the guy will not see the face of the Shekhinah is because we encourage other people. This guy becomes the poster child, which means if this guy is getting so, everybody's singing his praises and honoring him at a banquet, even though he married a non-Jew, so I should do it also. So we're just throwing down the whole religion, God forbid, down the toilet, because there are no consequences for not keeping the Torah. Anything goes, and even the rabbis, the leaders are respecting him and saying he's the best guy in front of 1,000 people. This is why all those ethical things we learned in the Talmud causes the destruction of our Holy Land and our temple, because now Rav Moshe Feinstein has a little bit controversial psak regarding this. Rav Moshe says a very interesting thing. Rav Moshe, if you want to look it up in his Teshubot, Orach Chaim, Volume 2, Teshubah 51, says the prohibition is only similar to the Gemara, where you're lying. You're stating a false action to gain favor in the eye of the king, or the billionaire, or the trillionaire, or the president, or the mafia, or whoever. But, like they said, the king said, oh, the Torah says, I'm not Jewish, father. They said, no, that's still acceptable. You could still be king. But, if you're saying the pure truth, the guy gave $1 million, he has a heart of gold. Okay, he doesn't care about any of his responsibilities to God and not marrying a Shikzta. Rav Moshe suggests, in order to gain a financial donation, that would be acceptable. But he's not even sure about this. It's a big stretch. He says it could be, it's not necessarily prohibited. That's why he says that if there's going to be a big fight in shul and it's going to cause a commotion, you're allowed to honor such a person that is clearly not religious at all and frankly doesn't care about any of his responsibilities. He can open the ark. But the majority of Jewish contemporary poskim argue on Rav Moshe. Rav Chaim Kanievsky Shlita, the prince and general of Torah, says there's no way that's acceptable. Rav Tzvi Weber, Rav Scheinberg Zatzal, they all hold that one should not compliment a Rasha in such a fashion. You cannot take somebody that is clearly not an ideal Jewish citizen because he married a non-Jew or desecrated Shabbat in open. You're not allowed to do that. And Rav Shach also, in his letters, writes that in his Michtavim u'Ma'amarim that they wrote, that it said, therefore one should not honor somebody that desecrates Shabbat openly at any type of dinner. So this is something very interesting, and I think this week's Parsha also is Matot. In Farsi, we have a saying, Mahi Asarish Gandhi this. The worst type of sinful action that is the beginning of the end of the Jewish nation is when it comes from the leaders, weak were ultimately willing to falsify the Torah and flatter the king Agrippas, so the king should be on good terms with them and he shouldn't kill them. This is a total lack of bitachon. When we think that mere mortals, whether they're a billionaire or the mafia or whoever, or the king, we treat them like God and we willing to condone and rationalize and sing the praises of them even if they're wrong just to gain favor from them, that's, in its essence, it's wrong in that we've missed the boat because we don't realize everything is up to God. And let's never forget, at the end of the day, when we the most important Jewish prayer, which is the most fundamental, that you have to have the most intention, is no question, is Shema Yisrael. And at the end of the Shema, we say Adonai Elohechem Emet. We have to be truthful people, and the truth is the truth. Now, do we go around bashing people? No. But to come in front of entire, sometimes in these banquets, there's thousands upon thousands of people. I don't know, honestly, myself. We have to go ask the greatest halachic and Torah authority. It is a terrible test. On one hand, somebody gave an institution $1 million, and on the other hand, it's only right, on one hand, to have gratefulness, which is the most basic, but by you being grateful and honoring him in a banquet, you are kind of condoning that his lifestyle of marrying non-Jewish. May Hashem guide us always in the right way and build our second temple. And let's always be in contact with the greatest of Torah scholars and authorities like Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, Rabbi Yaakov Hillel, Lo Alman Yisrael. When Moshe passed away, in every generation we have our own mini Moshe, like Rav Chaim Kanievsky, and decisions like this, we should only get guidance from them. Have a wonderful Shabbat. Don't forget to subscribe.